But what do you do for like Nala and Fox? Probably not Acre because she's a little baby, but what do you do as a dad to like show little business? You should be running like little mini business lessons for them sometimes at home.
Yeah, we always are. I think business lessons are the same as life lessons, aren't they? To be good at business, you just got to be able to win at life. It's, you know, teaching. I give an example. I remember teaching delayed gratification to Nala, which comes from a very famous experiment. It's called the marshmallow experiment. And, yeah, I'm sure you've seen it.
I have, yeah.
So I did that with Nala. I was like a 3-year-old, and I remember my mum was at our house, and I gave Nala this biscuit, and Megan was in the shower, my partner, and I said, "Nala, you have this biscuit, but if you can wait till Mum finishes in the shower and comes back downstairs, which is, who knows, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can have 2. You can have another one. All you have to do is just wait."
Yeah.
And I remember my mum saying, "You can't do that to a child. You can't," you know. And I was having to justify this lesson.
It's a scientific thing, Mum. Don't
yeah,
worry.
yeah. I'm like, "Man, it's a study," and I'm like, I'm crossing my fingers. Come on, Nala, you know, you can do this.
Pull through for
and
me.
you know, and it's funny. She was brilliant, and it kind of, you know. Anyway, so she did it, and she got 2, and it's fantastic. And I remember I did this recently with Fox, and he was just like, straight in the mouth. Eat, you know, I'm gonna have it straight away. I'm like, okay, maybe things can be taught. You know, how much of nature versus nurture, but every day there's an opportunity to teach things, but mostly it's about grit, and it's about, you know, having determination to do things. They probably teach me more than I teach them, I reckon. Kids, you know, it's funny, it's almost like kids haven't been burnt yet, and most of what stops people being successful is that theory of, they think that the past is going to be the future.
Yeah, and they have such big imaginations as well.
Huge imaginations, huge. But it's like, Nala doesn't know what's possible and what's not possible yet, you know? And so she's achieving every day because they're growing and they're changing, and they bounce back so quick, and their persistence, even to learn how to walk and talk and everything else, you know, it's a reminder all the time of, one, good things take time. Look at all the great, you know, it takes a year to learn how to walk, not a day or a week or a month. And it takes, you know, 2 years to learn how to talk, not a day or a week or a month.
It puts it in perspective when we can't hit a goal in a week, when we forget in your mid-20s that it did take you 2 years to learn how to talk.
100%.
Wow.
And they're not afraid. It's funny, I always talk about fears are taught, and I love, you know, a great example is, you know, my daughter bringing me a spider and saying, "Hey Dad, I found a spider."
You're like, "Holy shit!"
Correct.
Drop it.
And then me smacking the spider out of her hand, going, "You know, you can't pick spiders up."
Oh, wow.
And her going, "Why not?" And me then putting fear in her, saying, because they're dangerous, because they bite, because they all these other things.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good thing for scary things and things that can genuinely hurt you. But the problem is that the spider is an example of what we do all the time, which is we teach prejudice, we teach fears, and we teach danger. A good example is we say don't talk to strangers. But in business, everything you do with strangers, like it's networking, it's recruitment, it's finding talent, money, investment, all these types of things. You know, like often our fears towards our kids is really just placing a limit on their potential. So I'm big on, you know, my advice in parenting is always, your job is not to stop your kids from falling, it's just to pick them up when they do. It's to be available for them, but it's not to prevent. Your job is never to prevent. You have to skin your knees, and you've got to learn how to pick yourself up and know that, you know, the wound will heal and you get to try again, and it'll be tough because of it, but you can't put them in bubble wrap, that's for sure. I'd say the first thing my kids taught me was to learn how to be nice to myself, because I've always asked myself, wow, you know, I watched how I talked to my kids and how encouraging I was of them, and then I thought, imagine if I spoke to myself this way. Yeah. You know, and we're so, you know, I always say the greatest form of self-harm is self-talk. And when I listen to how I speak to them versus how my internal dialogue was, I was like, wow, there's a big disconnect here. Yeah. So that they taught me about, you know, witnessing that conversation and then learning how to be a better coach to myself. They taught me about fairy tales, and I often refer to, you know, Nala giving me this amazing lesson of, once again, of imagination, but just of believing in happy endings. Yeah. Having kids forced me to go back and re-watch every Disney movie ever made. And what I learned about those fairy tale movies was that 99% of the movie is bad. The storyline is evil will win, you know, the wrong person marries the princess, like it is the end of the world and all these horrible things are happening, but we stay in the fight of the fairy tale, like we're willing to watch it right to the end, because how do we know it finishes?
Very, very happy.
It has a happy ending. Every single fairy tale, no matter how bad it is or dark it is, we never lose hope, because we just decide that every fairy tale has a happy ending. And so the lesson for that for me was, well, why don't I look at my own life that way? Why can't I just decide that even if 90% is bad, or 95% is bad, or 99% is bad, and evil looks like it might win over, that if I'm a good person who does good things, that good always wins. And maybe it'll be in the last 1% that I'll realise that, but holding on to that belief is a really, really important one. So that's been a great lesson, like just optimism, like having this amazing optimism that things will work out well. You know, talking well to myself instead, celebrating being almost right. You know, I think to be a good parent, once again, you can't focus on results, you have to focus on progress. You know, so it's like toilet training a child. You've got to celebrate these tiny little milestones, because you're trying to protect their confidence, because the confidence is the thing that gets them to try again.
I peed almost in the toilet.
You've heard that story, right? Yeah. So
it's a good one, yeah.
You know, teaching Nala how to use the bathroom. It was, you know, her being so excited to say, Dad, I did it. I went to the toilet, and going into the bathroom to realise that she'd made it to the room with the toilet and the walls covered in, you know, wee. But
maybe that was Fox.
but having the ability to be able to calm yourself and say, well done, that's amazing. You know, we're making progress.
Yeah. And
that celebration gives Nala then the courage to go, you know, I'm going to try again, I'm going to improve, I'm going to get better at this. And I was thinking individually before I had kids, I was probably too focused on perfection rather than progress, or results rather than progress. And so they learned me how to just build confidence and celebrate, you know, moving in the right direction. You know, grit, imagination, humour, the ability to be able to bring fun to things rather than things have to be fun. Yeah. You know, kids make everything fun. And as adults, we lose that. So learning how to go, if I'm not having fun, maybe it's because I'm not a fun person. I've got to bring fun to the party, not the party be fun. So, man, I could sit here all day.
Yeah. It's so transferable to business though, and like especially that of progress. I think it's funny, we're the progress faculty, but it's for a reason, because nothing just happens instantly. There's steps that you take. And like, especially with toilet training, they don't just learn all of a sudden. Those little lessons, and not beating yourself up when that mini goal almost is met. Celebrating
it. Yeah, correct. Progress is all we need. That was what, you know, why we call it the progress faculty. I think progress is fulfilment. For businesses, for companies, for communities, for populations, for brands, trends, change. As long as you're moving forward, like there's still hope, and there's growth, and there's this feeling of we're achieving something, and maybe we're achieving something together, and there's the sense of community again. As long as things feel like the trajectory is up, we're hanging in the fight.
So what would you say to somebody if they feel like they are maybe a bit stagnant, maybe, or even plateauing, they don't feel like they're actually on that upward progression?
Yeah, you got to go looking for it. One is you got to be a part of something which is progressing. You know, I find a lot of ambitious people are in unambitious environments, and then wondering why they're confused as to why they're not moving forward. You know, it's funny, if somebody says, I want to have a 50% increase in my income in 12 months, but they're working in a company which has only increased its growth by 3% in 10 years, the likelihood of you achieving that is incredibly small. But it's a question people fail to ask. What's the trajectory of the company? What's the growth rate of the company? And then comparing that with your growth ambitions. They have to be in sync. So the risk is you're just in the wrong environment, right? So you need to shift that. Shifting that comes from first asking smart questions to make sure you're in the right place at the right time. And knowing that graduation is important. So sometimes we want to progress, but the reality is that normally is at the expense of what you're currently doing. And that sometimes means relationships, or careers, or whatever it is. And people petrify of that, But our whole life has been like that. You know, you go to grade 1 until you're smart enough. You go to grade 2. You leave that teacher. Sometimes you leave those friends, and you go to a new class. Sometimes the classes get segregated a little bit. Eventually you become smart enough that there's options. Maths A, Maths B, Maths C. You know, and so for you to go and pursue your potential, often that means some of your friends are in a different class to you. So we leave friends, we leave teachers, sometimes we leave schools, we go to a certain high school which focuses on a certain thing. But then we forget to do that. We become an adult and we settle. We go, my friends are my friends, my mentors are my mentors, my career is my career, I am who I am. Whereas learning's supposed to be lifelong, progression's supposed to be lifelong. And if you're still doing what you were doing 6 months ago, you're massively going backwards because of the speed of change in the world now. Technology, globalization, access, like speed is just crazy at the moment. So you got to fight to keep up. But sometimes that means you have to let go. Sometimes letting go is keeping up, right?
And change and like accepting change and sometimes getting out of your comfort zone and actively just trying to do something different.
Getting out of your comfort zone sometimes means just getting out of your own way.
Yeah, and like we have so many travellers that come and work here, and that's their biggest thing that they say. Like when we ask why are you here, it's, well, like I came from England, from the UK to Australia just for change. That's pretty scary, like to leave your family, leave your friends, leave everything that you know to come to a country. Then they find us, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's,
I love that.
Fully
Travellers.
accepting change, yeah.
Travellers who go and travel by themselves, and I've never done it. I've lived by myself within Australia in different cities, but people who they travel across the world and live on their own, it says a lot about their personality. That, they're brave, and that's half the battle, right? So being brave. Yeah.
I feel like I'm ready now to have 3 children, take on the world, run a business, do everything.
Hope you've got a good partner. I wouldn't be able to do it without mine.